This is Pixelated Zen presents the Neverwinter Foundry Debrief, where we go through the Neverwinter Foundry and we review the good and the bad for your enjoyment and edification. Today, we're taking a look at A Hidden Blade, the first in a two-part story entitled From the Shadows. Created by Tilt42, the basic premise is that you've been hired by a man to attend a meeting in his stead. First off, let's get the stats out of the way. This review is for version 1.57 of the quest. It's for one player, there's a medium amount of combat, and there's a ton of dialogue. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to the review. You head to a small shop in Neverwinter and find your employer in a pretty empty room. It seems he's just setting up, and one of his employees, an adventurer he hired before you, is out overseeing some of his operations in the Sword Mountains. The adventurer, Trenavis Erdane, has requested your employer meet him at the Lucky Arrow Inn, and your employer is a little suspicious of this. This is a world where dragons pretend to be people, and gods routinely play with mortals like dolls. I think he's probably right to be a little concerned. There's not too much to the room visually, but it fits with the story and it's well put together for what's there. The dialogue, however, is a strong point. It's well written and there are several options when talking to people, even religion or profession-specific ones. That's a nice touch. The quest is extremely dialogue heavy overall, and if you're planning on just skipping through it to get to the fighting, there really aren't that many fights in the quest. That's not to say that the fights that are on display aren't well done either. There were several times where my blood was pumping and I thought, oh shit, this is pretty badass. Still, the focus is on the dialogue here, and it is well done. We're not in slash fiction territory here, thankfully, and everything is crafted with obvious love and care. I didn't notice any typos or broken English, and while there was the occasional confusing bit, such as an innkeeper giving you access to all of the room keys for the inn, it didn't really hurt the story overall. If there was a single thing that felt really bad, it's the doors in the inn. There are dozens of them, and while you need to try only a few if you get lucky, it would be totally possible to go around clicking on door after door and getting nowhere. It's also a little clunky in interacting with the doors, but that may be a limitation of the engine more than a design problem with the quest. All of the fights had plenty of room to maneuver and were well set up, except for one, and it's one of the most important moments in the story. Enemies attack you in a small corridor, and the fight was extremely cramped. Now, they may have been going for that, but the big bad enemy got stuck on the door frame for a while and it kind of killed the feeling of immersion. While the quest is short overall, the location variety was surprisingly high. You get to visit a small shop before it opens, an inn on a busy night, and an extremely atmospheric forest area at night. There's even a really cool platforming section that, while it wasn't hard at all, was a surprisingly welcome addition. I ran into a weird problem here, however, where I somehow approached the quest from the opposite direction intended, then had to follow the clues backward the way I had already come, including running into an ambush that was obviously not there when I had come by the first time. There were also a couple fights that didn't fit story-wise, and it seemed more that the author probably felt that more fights were needed and he wanted to vary it up a bit, so he threw some random enemies at you. It's not immersion breaking, those enemies certainly could be in that area, but it felt a little forced. In the end, you head back to your employer where he explains a bit about what's going on and drops a few more tidbits and hooks to keep you interested. By the time I finished A Hidden Blade, I was honestly excited to play the next part in the story, the Lennar Legacy, but that will have to wait for another video. Overall, the quest was extremely well done. The dialogue, while having a lot of it, was well written and included branching paths and special bits for religion or profession. The fights were fun and almost always well placed and exciting. The story was great, intriguing, and it wasn't so long that I lost interest. I gave the quest a 4 out of 5, losing 1 star for the few minor issues that I mentioned above. A great start for anyone looking to get some lore-heavy questing out of the Foundry.